get into this duo that you had with Sheila. And this is the first time I think I remember hearing your name associated with this duo. And it stood out to me because I was into, as a guitar player, I was into duos, guitar and bass, guitar and sax, guitar and piano. So to hear about a duo, first of all, caught my interest. But I hadn't, at that time, we're talking about the 70s, I can't think of hearing any other strictly voice and bass duos. Maybe I'd gone to performances that vocalists had participated in, and maybe one tune out of the set, maybe everybody would drop out except the bass player, and they'd have a duo performance. But I never heard of a duo before of voice and bass completely, just a duo. So how did that, whose idea was it? How did it begin? Tell me everything you remember about the beginning of this duo, which was a pretty radical thing in the 70s, I think.
Well, you're very right. What happened was, I was working with Sheila, but when I first started, and we worked, just gigs, quartet gigs, and sometimes a gig with me, her, and a piano player. And we were doing different gigs. And then eventually, then I was with Steve Kuhn's quartet, which we had a saxophone player in there. And then Steve decided, he had been doing some gigs with Sheila, and we did them together. So he decided, well, I'm going to do the quartet, and Sheila, being like a horn player, will be in the quartet. It's not that Sheila Jordan singing, leading. She was a band member. So we did this band, which is a great band, with Bob Moses on drums, and we toured all over the world. We were on ECM Records, and we made a bunch of records for them, and we did a lot with this bass and voice. And when we traveled, we get to some place, and those days, unlike now, and this is the whole purpose, a lot of this podcast, is to talk about more the early way things were. In those days, we took a drum set with us, and I took my bass and my amp to Europe, and everywhere we went, we took all this stuff with us. That was normal in those days. So, it was a situation where we would get to a place, and of course, at the hotel, there wouldn't be a piano, and usually Moses' drums were somewhere else packed up, but I always had the bass with me in my room. So Sheila would always say to me, "Come on, Harvie, come by the room. Let's play some tunes." And I'm always looking for a good chance to play, so I'd come by Sheila's room and we'd do tunes together. We practiced together a lot, just to have fun, just to keep the chops up and do that. But I didn't know that Sheila had ulterior motives. I didn't know that. So she one day says to me, she says, Sheila says, "Harvie, I have a concert in Pennsylvania, and I want you to do it." And I said, "Oh, great. I said, "Who's going to play piano?" And she goes, "Nobody." I went, "Oh, no piano. Oh, okay, who's going to play guitar?" "Nobody." I said, "Well, who's going to play drums?" She goes, "Nobody." I said, "Wait a minute, Sheila." I said, "What do you mean? You I'm joking." "Yeah, right. You mean you and I are going to do the concert?" She goes, "Yeah." And I said, "No way." I said, "I'm not doing that." I said, I can't do that." She says, "You can do it." I said, "I can't do it." We argued. Finally, she won the argument. I said, "Okay, I'll do the concert with you." I said, "But I'm not going to get up there with a bunch of music stands and read parts." I said, "I want to learn this music. I want to have everything memorized, and let's start rehearsing." So we had 2 months. Now, Sheila used to work as a secretary, and she worked uptown, and she lived downtown. So, and my place was, I lived in the city at the time. And my place was, and she always loved to walk home. So what she would do 2 or 3 times a week, she'd walk to my place, we'd rehearse for a couple of hours, and then my wife and I would make dinner, and we'd eat dinner together. And we did this 3 times a week for a couple of months. We rehearsed a lot because I take things seriously. I want to really be right. So we did this because I was very nervous about this concert. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to do this one concert and it's finished. We don't have to worry, and then we go back to piano and I'll be happy. So we get to the concert and we play the first half. Went really, I think, pretty well. Then we did the second thing and we got 5 standing ovations.
Wow.
That's exactly what I said. I said, wow. I said, damn. So I was thinking, maybe there is something to this.
Maybe we got something.
Maybe we got something here. So we started to get this duo going.
Bye.